Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and today we are in part 10 of my turn-based battle system tutorial. And in this part we are going to do some cleanup and working a bit more on base classes and looking into inheritance I just was talking about in part 2, I believe. And we also go over and modify a bit the player state machine, the enemy state machine, and so on and so forth. Also, we are going to create prefabs of the enemies and heroes to make them work better, and maybe we're going also and create selectors for the enemies so we can see which enemy we are currently selecting, which isn't too hard to create this one. And depending on the time we are or I just spent on doing all that stuff, I may go over and start creating some attacks and maybe also start to implement to take damage and do damage, as I said in the last video. So let's get started. At first I go into my script folder and do some cleanup. I want to create some folders for the scripts which to have that more organized. So I create a base classes folder, and in the base classes folder I will put in the base enemy and the base hero. There will also be a new one, what the hell? There will be also later on a new class we are going to write. Then we have the state machines, so maybe I go and create another folder called state machines, just to make sure that I have everything organized again. So put all of that inside. Handle turn is going to be basically is also a base class which we are inheriting from or creating instances from. Not inheriting, but creating instances. And that's basically it for now. I believe I just leave handle turn as it is. Later on we'll also go over or we can also do this right now, is we're going to create a text folder. But this also will have a base class, and we will create other classes which are going to inherit from the base class. So at first let's go over and change some stuff for base enemy and base hero. As as someone already mentioned, I did not inherit from that classes, and I don't have a base class basically for those two classes to inherit from to easing up stuff. And so let's create another class, basically a C# script, and call this one just base class. I don't know how I should call this. And let's open this one and mono develop. What I want to do is I want to clamp all the information of base enemy and base hero in that class to make it usable from each other. So we inherit, or we are going to inherit from base class. We don't need those right now. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get rid of start and update since we don't need those. And I want to basically just grab all the information we are actually having in base enemy or base hero and push all of that important data to the base class. So what does that mean is every enemy and every hero basically have the same stats. They all have HP, they all may have MP, base attack, current attack, and so on and so forth. So what I go over is I just take this main part basically and cut that off base enemy and push that into the base class, because the base class will basically hold the same information which the base enemy is going to share and the base hero is going to share. So what I don't share maybe is stamina, intelligence, dexterity, and agility we just added, but what I actually don't need is those four. We don't need in the base class of the base hero basically, we don't need base HP or current HP, same for MP, because we are going to inherit those informations from the base class. So since they are already in here, we are able to get all that information from the base class. So we inherit this one. What we also don't need in here is the name, since boss, like the enemy and the hero, will both have a name. So we don't need that specifically in the base enemy, and we don't need this one specifically in the hero, or in the base of the hero. So the only thing right now we just have in here is the stamina, intellect, dexterity, and agility, if this is going to be important later on. What I could also do is I could also do and push or put all that information also in the base class. So we can later on work with that. Otherwise, our heroes won't ever have grass, fire, water, electric, any type of enemy, and they won't have any rarity, so that information will still contain or will still be in the base enemy. Yeah, so let's save this one and also save this one and save the base class. So to inherit those informations like the name, base hero, to make them usable in base enemy, we just type in that double dot, and then we say we inherit base class like this. And also, don't forget to save this one, and same in hero. So what we do is we inherit all the information from base class and can still make them visible and usable in base hero. We don't need to make this one serializable, since those are basically the child objects of the base class, and we only want to see with that stuff, and that should be it for now. So when I go back to what I want to do is I want to change this one, the string name. I want this to be called the name, since I will have some problems. I want to avoid that, so just rename this one to the name or anything else. Just don't use name alone, because this will have some, or we will have some trouble later on if we don't change this one. So make sure you do that. Okay, so all base heroes will, or actually every hero will have those stats, every enemy will have those stats, and both of them will also contain those stats. So we have, or we can set base attack, base defense, base MP, and base HP, which stands for health, mana, attack points, and so on. And yeah, the defense. Okay, so let's get over and look into that, how they are looking right now. Make sure that everything is safe once again. There we go. And I'll hop back to Unity. What will happen right now, we already will get an error. This is pretty much normal, since we don't know the method, or basically the name of base enemy is not called name anymore, since we just renamed it to the name. So we'll get rid of that errors and stuff later on. So let's look into one of those enemies. What you can see is all those enemies still inherit the same informations. We have HP, MP, attack, and defense. We have already set them up a while ago, but we still have the type and the rarity and all the other things still in the same public field in here, which we can populate with any information we want. Same with rarity, and yeah, that's cool, I believe. What we also want to go over later on is, of course, creating the selector for that and creating a prefab out of the enemies. So let's get over and fix the battle state machine at first. We will do the selector stuff in a bit. Okay, so the battle state machine says, I don't know what the hell is the name, as you can see here. And the name is basically just needs to change to be the name, since we inherit from that base class, and in there we just called this one the name instead of just name. Again, otherwise we may get in trouble. And that seems to be it for now. Then we will get 2 more errors in the enemy state machine, of course, and also in the player state machine. The same problem. We need to rename the name in here, since we want to get the attacker name. Save the script, return to Unity. Now we should get the player state machine. Oh no, we don't. Let's test this one out. There may get, or we will have some more problems, I believe. And there we go. We get a null reference because we have changed the inheritance basically. So let's get into it. And I believe the battle state machine does not know what to do. So let's get over at that and see what it is. Well, since we have changed the name variable, we need to populate the enemy once again with the right name or the corresponding name. So we can just take this one from here, copy, paste in the name. Same for enemy 2. Just name it enemy 2. And same for the heroes. They still don't have anything else, so we can just go over and copy in the names, so we don't get any null reference once again. And don't forget to save the scene and restart and test if everything again works properly. And there we go. So the enemies are going to attack, and we are also able to attack the enemies like this. And pretty cool, everything works again. So inheriting from one base class will just, or is basically just saving us several lines of code actually. Yeah, and that's cool, I believe. Okay, so let's go over and modify or create prefabs out of our heroes and enemies. For the heroes, we will have later on a bit trouble, but let's just get over and do that. So what I want to do is I create a new folder in here and just say base prefabs. And in that base prefabs, I just go over and drag maybe enemy 1 for now. Enemy 1 holds everything which is currently on it, and later on if we are going to modify it, we just need to change this. The first thing is I want just to set this one to enemy and reset every informations in here, so I will go over later on, and if I start and create new enemies, I will just have to change all of them after I just put the informations I need later on into it. Okay, also I want to make sure it's tagged right, and maybe I go over and I reset its position to 0, 0, 0, so I can later on go over and fix all the values just easily. The next thing is I reset the Y value once again, and now what I can do is I can get rid of the enemy 2 and can drag in another enemy 1 basically. What in the scene I need to redo something in here, so oops. Everything which is bold is going to be not stored in the prefab, but is stored in the current game object. Later on, when we are going to instantiate those game objects, we will get the informations we have stored in the prefab. Since this is going to be just a base prefab, I'm going to rename this one. Maybe I can also go over and rename this one to base enemy. It doesn't really matter how it's named. The name in here of course needs to be base enemy 2 then. Just make sure that you don't populate that into the scene. Okay, so maybe we have at that enemy an HP of 1, current of 1, base MP maybe 0 or 10, it doesn't really matter, a base attack of 5, a defense of maybe 2, and the other things, we just leave them alone, we don't need to fiddle around with them. Same with the second enemy, so rename this one to enemy 2. This is the name needs to be enemy 2. Make sure that the name is 100% the same as this one. This maybe has 120 HP, base MP of 15, attack of 8, defense, I don't know, maybe 3 and 3. And it's of type, whatever, water. Okay, so that doesn't really matter. We just later on need those values to calculate the damage between those instances or those prefabs or game objects. We can do the same with the hero. The problem will be we cannot just we can't store a progress bar for this one. So we need to instantiate later on or create health bars, and those panels in here, we need to create them depending on how many heroes we have in the scene, the same as we have done for the buttons. I need to take or create the connection for those, so we need we see which bar is going to be the corresponding one for the hero, but we won't go over and do that today. Maybe you want to go and create this one for yourself already, and fiddle around with all that stuff. You maybe really know already how that is going to work. So we are creating a base hero in here. This is going to be the name base hero. I'm working inside of the prefab. I also go over in here and rename this one to base hero 2. Just to make sure I just have base prefabs in here, nothing else. And we go over again and reset all those values. The processing, the state machine, basically we could go over and put this one into private mode. The progress bar we can't set because we don't have a direct connection currently. And the selector game object is on it, so it can be it is going to be the one which is on the hero. Okay, then hero 2 can be deleted, and of course we go over and create a new prefab out of this. And now we can rename those prefabs directly in the scene and populate them with information. This will be done later on by script, of course, when we are entering the battle, but for now we're just setting those up to have stuff working in here. So we set this one to, I don't know, we don't need all of that, maybe a base attack of 15. All of that informations will later on be managed from other scripts to when we are going into the battle, so those values will be changed later on depending on who is in the battle and so on and so forth. But we don't go over that. Defense of, I don't know, maybe 3, and we don't really need those values in here, but we just set them up. And this progress bar is going to be in our battle canvas hero bar 1, well, at least for now. And here's the progress bar, so make sure we drag in the progress bar image, the right one. And same for the hero 2 in just a second. Again, we will later on go over and instantiate or create those hero bars depending on the heroes in battle, but we also go over and do that in another video. So we take base hero 1 in here, this one, we rename this one to hero 2, copy that name, paste this one in that, populate some information, maybe 180, I don't know, maybe 20, base attack of 9, defense of 5, and all those stats are just 10. Just leave them as they are. Going into the hero bar itself again and drag in the progress bar. That's basically it. The selector is already in here. Now we need to fiddle around with the position. So as you can see, the enemy in here is already resetted, but the base hero is not, so we want to make sure that those informations are all right. Hero 2 is going to be there. We just put it at this position, and enemy 1. Let's see which one it is. Gonna go to 3. Okay, this is this one. So we can set this Z value to the Z value. Oh no, that's the X value to this one. So then we are back to that. Gonna organize all of that stuff a bit, maybe the canvas in the top, and there we go. Okay, so let's go over. We just created the prefabs. We can always go over and create new ones out of those base prefabs. Basically, everything is resetted in there. I'm sorry for the trouble. We could have done that, all of that stuff, yeah, further, but that's okay. Okay, so now let's get over and create a small function for showing the selector or creating a selector for the enemy. We just we would just select when we are going over a button. One user already, or one who is actually following this tutorial, already made this one. So I didn't do that, or haven't done that before, so I just go over and create this one. What I want to do is I go in my prefabs folder where my selector is located, and I drag this one into enemy 1. The same is I go over and create this on enemy 2. I can also go over and create this one with another color. So I could go over and create a new one. Maybe I choose red or black or anything fancy you like to do or like to see and create. I just leave this one as it is. So now we have the connection, but we go over, or need to go over into a script and make this selector visible and or invisible. So at first we do the same as we have done in the battle in the hero state machine. So in here we just created the game object selector, so we just basically can copy that part in here. Let's deselect, or basically get rid of those. We don't need them anymore, I believe. So what we do is in here, this game object already has the public game object selector. We can just drag this one into the script then. Also at start we want to make sure, as we have done in here, that we set the selector to false. So we go into the start and say selector.selective, as we have done in hero, to be false, and the line. So now we have the connection to that. Make sure that it is public, so we can grab that selector just into the slot. So what I go is I go to my base prefabs folder, into base enemy. I need to make sure that this change has or is applied to this one, or I just go over and drag the selector. I will hope this is working. Well, no, it's not, because it's not the same. I drag the base enemy just in here, add the selector to that base enemy. Oops, gonna do that again. Now drag in the selector in the game object, and now I apply this change to the already existing base prefab. Now I can get rid of that one. As you can see, now I have two selectors in here. I believe I can just go over and get rid of them. That was the wrong one. And now they are both updated, I believe. So now we can also check if the selector is in here, and yes, it is. So if you see a message that you are losing a connection, then make sure that you undo this step and choose the other selector. Okay, so we now have boss enemies will have the selector, and now we can just make them visible and invisible depending on the button we are going to mouse over. What we want to do is we go into our target 1 button, which is the button which is holding the enemy selector basically, or the enemy select button script. And what we want to do is we want to populate or change some things. So if we are going to mouse over, we just hovering the selector on and off. So we need to do that with a new element or a component basically, and this component is going to be I believe it's it's an event, and here we have an event trigger, and this event trigger we add a new event type and we say pointer enter. So when we're entering the with the mouse, we are entering the button we just creating, and I'll demonstrate this pretty quick. So once we are over one of those buttons, enemy 1 or 2, we want to make sure that we show the selector. So and for that we need a new function, and we can just easily use the enemy select button script for this and create a small function to make them, or basically 2 functions to make this one visible or invisible. I don't know if there is a possibility to do it with 1. Well, I believe there is. So this needs to be public of type void, and we say toggle I don't know, toggle selector, maybe like this. What we need to pass in is the enemy's prefab selector of game object. So we need to get the component into its child. So what we do is we say private, we just store this one, private game object selector. We could also go get this one on start, but it's well, just take it like it is. And now we can say selector is going to be equal to game object dot find, and what we want to do is we want to find, no, we don't need to find this one. We just can say, I believe, enemy prefab dot transform dot find child, and in here we can pass in the string name of selector, and we need to say it's going to be a game object, and now we can set this one to active or inactive. Let's say for true. I'm gonna think about that, and maybe we are able to do everything in one. We need to change something in here. We just get rid of selector since we would get an error. So we don't need private game object selector in here. We just set that enemy prefab directly, and we shouldn't get any errors if you've got one, so make sure that you get rid of that part. Then what we want to do is I just added a private bool show selector, which is just a Boolean variable to switch on and off. And what I want to do is I want to take that selector and switch depending on the, since this is going to be returning true or false, I want to say I don't want to set this in here to true, I want to set this one to show selector. So depending on if show selector is true or false, I want to take that and place it into here. So I can say if show selector is going to be true, basically, we just pass in that and say, okay, we do so. We just take the state or the bool depending on how the show selector is, in which state ever, and we just go over and show selector. And we can also, I believe, just switch selector so we can set this one to its negative value depending on what it just is by doing it so. I'm gonna save this one. And now let's get over and test this one out. I shouldn't get any errors in here. If so, we go over and fix them. Well, doesn't seem so. Okay, back into our event trigger on our target 1 button. I just go over and add a new part in here. The first thing is I want to make sure that I grab that where is it? That enemy select button script and pass this one in here. So what I want to do is I go into battle canvas. There is the select target panel and there is a spacer. In that spacer I sadly need to pass in or create in that target button once. So I have a connection, or basically can grab the component out of it. So now I have that in the spacer. Now I take that target 1 button, place this one in here. Now I can set a function, so I can take the enemy select button script and choose, where is it? Toggle selector. Okay, so let's stay with that, and we need to change the same when we are going to exit the pointer. So what I want to make sure is I select and add a new event type of pointer exit. We will have the same, and we also will go over and toggle the selector game object. With that done, we just go over and test this one out, I believe. So let me get, oh, don't forget to apply the changes and get rid of the target 1 button for short. And see if this is going to do or going to work. So I press enemy 1. Well, nothing is changing when we are entering and exiting this one. Well, let's see what's the problem. Maybe it's going to be the toggle, or I need to set this one to true. Well, I believe not. Or we need to have another function, because we don't check if this is not going to be selector. So maybe we just create another one, or maybe it needs to be an else if. I believe I could also use this switch. Let's test this one out once again. Let's wait until we can do any attack. And there's still, or this is still not working. Okay, so it doesn't seem that this is going to work, so I just do it a bit different. What I do is I just create a second function. So I just say hide selector. I don't know where the problem is, and I don't like to fiddle around with that too long right now. So what I want to do is I want to hide the selector by setting this one to be false and getting rid all of that stuff in here. So I just have two functions and doing basically the same. And this one is going to be show selector. Maybe like this. Gonna get rid of the private bool because we don't need that, and hopefully we are going to get this one to work too. If not, there is a connection missing. Now we need to change the prefab stuff in here. So there's a missing component. We need to go to EnemySelect and say hide selector for the first one. When we are entering, we want to show the selector, and when we are exiting, we want to hide the selector. So let's get started and test this one out once again. And there we go. Now you can see when I go over those buttons, I can see which of that enemies is which in the scene. The problem now is if I select an enemy, it will not change back. So we need to take care of that and say any selected or any selector needs to be get hidden after we were clicking on that button. So what we can say is we need the best way would be to get rid of all currently selected ones when we're clicking on that. So maybe we create a new function, or we change this one. Okay, so on the same problem will be here, and we need to go and take target one button in here. We want to take enemy select button, and we want to say hide selector. So let's see if this is going to work. Not sure if it is. So when I go over and click enemy 2 right now, it already, yeah, that's pretty cool, pretty easy. We don't need to do it another way. So we go to enemy 1, it's currently selected. If I press this one, it will be unselected. Pretty cool, and works for any enemy we're gonna actually selecting. So make sure that on click you add the target button once again and call hide selector. Okay, I think we are done with that because the other stuff would take too much time. So what we have done today is we fiddled around, basically we created one more base class which we are inheriting base enemy and base hero. Then we just created prefabs of base enemy and base hero to create other heroes and enemies out of them, so have them as kind of base actually for later new heroes or other heroes and other enemies. And also we created we changed some stuff in the enemy and the hero state machine just to fit them the base class. And of course we would just created those selector objects to make visible who are we going to attack. So the player gets some feedback, who the hell is enemy 1, enemy 2, or if we have some fancy names, then we will just know, okay, this is the one we are attacking. And yeah, pretty cool. I believe in the next one we are going over and create some attacks, a base attack and several attacks out of that, and make them anyhow visible with doing damage and taking damage. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next part. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you learned something. And if you found this one helpful in any way, just make sure that you go over and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to see more in the future, of course. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And sum this video up if it was helpful, of course. So see you in the next part. Bye bye.